just because of a small cut right near the plug. The whole device suddenly turned into a useless piece of metal. And here's how I save it in just a few minutes. There's nothing more annoying than a power cord suddenly breaking right at the base of the plug, the spot that gets pulled and bent the most, and is also the weakest. Replacing it would be costly and wasteful, and throwing away would be such a shame. So I decided to fix it properly. Cut off the damaged section, reconnect the wires securely, and reinforce against bending so it can be used safely and more durably, saving money and letting me handle the repair right at home. When I started the repair, the first thing I did was cut off the broken section of the cable completely to remove the damaged part inside. Keeping that section would only make the joint weak later, and likely cause the problem to come back. Next, I removed the old strain relief rubber sleeve at the base of the plug as well. Taking this part off let me start fresh and keep things neat, and it also freed up space to reinforce it later, so it would be stronger and more durable, avoiding the same failure all over again. Because this strain relief is molded as part of the plug, removing it took quite a bit of time and effort. I had to carefully cut it away bit by bit, so I wouldn't damage the plug housing underneath, checking my progress as I went. After dealing with the outer sheath, I gently stripped back this and a little more to expose the copper wires inside. This step had to be done very carefully because the remaining cable was already very short. One slip or too much force could snap it completely, making the repair even harder. As for the other end of the cable, I also stripped off the insulation to expose the copper wires inside. This section was longer, so it was much easier to work with without constantly worrying about snapping it like the short end. Thanks to that, I could tidy it up, straighten and clean the copper strands, and get everything ready for joining the two ends back together. With this soldering iron, there's no need to worry too much about distinguishing the two wires, because in principle, no matter which way you connect them, the tool will still work and the tip will heat up normally. So in this case, you don't need to stress about which wire goes to which. What matters more is that the joint is solid, well insulated and safe, so it won't be unreliable or cause any electrical leakage during use. I then soldered the two ends of the wire back together to restore the connection. I used solder to secure the two joined wire ends. As the solder melted and flowed over the joint, the copper strands were locked together into a much more solid piece. I focused on making the joint neat and smooth without leaving any bumps or excess buildup. After the solder joint had cooled and set, I slid a piece of heat shrink tubing over it to cover the entire joint. Once it shrank tightly in place, it formed a neat insulating layer that not only protected the joint from dust and moisture, but also helped reduce bending stress right at the weakest point of the cable. After covering the joint with heat shrink tubing, I went a step further and wrapped each wire with an extra layer of electrical tape for added safety. Since this part is directly related to electricity, I took extra care and added more layers than usual to make sure nothing was left exposed. It took a bit more time, but in return I got much more peace of mind when using it and reduced the risk of shorts later on. I wrapped one more outer layer of electrical tape around it to finish off the repaired section of the cable. This layer helps hold everything together, adds more strength, and provides extra protection for the joint inside. Looking at it afterward, the cable section looks neater and sturdier, and most importantly, I feel much more confident using it, knowing it's been reinforced thoroughly from the inside out. As for the base of the plug, I decided to add some hot glue to replace the strain relief rubber I had removed. Of course, this can't be as effective as the manufacturer's original design, but at least it adds some support and helps keep the cable from bending and breaking right at that weak point. Think of it as a practical temporary solution that offers extra protection and helps extend the life of the cable. After the repair, the cable looked much neater and more solid than when it had the hidden break. The joint was fully covered with heat shrink tubing and multiple layers of tape, so it looked clean and continuous, with no more loose or unreliable feeling. At the base of the plug, the new layer of hot glue, though simple, also helped secure the cable better and reduce sharp bending right at the weak point. Because this cable was already quite old, there were many small cracks along its length. They might not look like a big deal, but in reality, they can be a safety risk. That's why I decided to share how I fixed and reinforced it, so others can use it as a reference. For the small cracks along the cable, I used short pieces of electrical tape to wrap each spot one by one. Just a few turns at each place were enough to cover the exposed insulation and keep it from tearing any further. This time, I also used some string to wrap over the layer of tape I had just applied. Wrapping the string helps hold the tape in place and adds extra durability to the cracked sections of the cable. I wrapped it evenly, tight enough to secure everything without making the cable stiff, basically adding another layer of mechanical reinforcement, so the cable can handle stress better during use. After finishing the string wrapping, I added a small amount of super glue on the outside to secure it. The glue soaked into the string, making it harden and bond tightly to the tape underneath, forming a stronger reinforcing layer. Once the glue dried, that section of the cable became more stable, reducing the chance of string coming loose or the wrap slipping during use. When everything was finished, the cable looked much sturdier and neater than before. The spots that had been cracked were now fully covered with tape, wrapped with string, and locked in place with glue, so they looked more solid and uniform. The joint near the plug was also well reinforced, with no more loose or weak feeling. Even though this is just a repair on an old cable, at least now it's safer, and I can use it with more peace of mind for the time being. Now I'm going to plug the soldering iron in to check whether it works properly after the wire repair. I'll watch closely to see if the power comes on steadily, if the tool starts up like before, and whether there are any signs of flickering or instability, just to make sure the repaired cable is truly fine and safe to keep using. When I plugged it in, I saw the soldering iron start heating up normally, which showed that the current was flowing steadily again. So you could say the repair and reinforcement worked. The tool was operating just like it did before it broke. Seeing this result was pretty reassuring, because the fix not only made it usable again, but also made everything run more reliably. When it comes to anything involving electricity, I always emphasize adding multiple layers of insulation to stay safe. Spending a bit more time applying extra layers of tape, heat shrink tubing, or outer reinforcement may take longer, but it significantly reduces the risk of exposed wires instability or leakage. Safety is still more important than neatness, especially with cables that are old or have already been damaged. Overall, this repair method is quite practical and makes good use of simple materials you already have, helping the device work again without having to replace it right away. The advantages are that it's cost-effective, quick to do, and if you reinforce it carefully, it can still be used reliably for a while. However, since this is an old cable and only a repair solution, in the long run it's still better to consider replacing it with a new one to ensure absolute safety. This approach works well as a temporary fix, but when you have the chance, replacing the cable with a new part is still the safest option. After reconnecting the cable and checking it again, the soldering iron still worked just as well as before. It heated up steadily, with no signs of flickering or power loss, which showed that the joint was conducting electricity properly. This proves that the repair not only made it usable again, but also ensured the tool operates normally during use. In short, with just a few simple steps and bit care, I was able to save a cable that seemed ready to be thrown away and get the soldering iron working normally again. The most important part is doing the insulation properly, adding multiple layers to make sure it's safe to use. Even though this isn't a perfect solution like replacing the cable with a new one, it's still very useful when you need a quick, cost-effective fix and want to make use of what you already have. The key point is to always put safety first when working with anything electrical.